Hello everyone, and welcome to this special episode of Kelly's Quest. We are going way back in time and bringing guests from the past forward. As a matter of fact, I am bringing on today my very first guest that I ever had on the show, Rebecca Miner. And back then, Rebecca and I decided that, let's not start small with the conversation. Let's just jump both feet in. And who knew that what we discussed then is kind of what your profession is now in a way. We decided, and y'all need to go check this episode because it's really pretty good for a first go at it. We talked about puberty. Mm-hmm. We discussed what my puberty was like as a transgender woman, because way back then, in those many years ago, I had not affirmed my authentic self as I was going through puberty. I'd attempted to many times with my family, but my family was not quite able to make that journey with me because they didn't have this book here called Raising Trans Kids. So maybe if this book had existed, things would have been different, but probably not really, because back then there was this whole, what will the neighbors think of you? What will society think of you? And there was a lot of pressure on my family for conformity back then. So yes, go back and check that episode out. Rebecca did fantastic then. She has been doing so much in life since, and this was in 2015 when we did this episode, a decade ago, almost to the day even. So Rebecca, thank you so much for coming back, and I just kind of want to touch base with you on what's happening in your life.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me back. It's so exciting to be your 10-year anniversary episode.
It blows my mind.
Right. When I think about it now, I was in grad school. That's when I finished grad school. So I've been in the field now for 10 years. And now I have my own practice. I have a group practice. So I work with a whole bunch of clinicians now. And I wrote a book.
Wait, you say you have a group practice?
Yes.
It is your group practice?
Correct.
And you have a best-selling book?
I sure do.
And you've got a child on the way?
I do, yes.
Yeah, look at
weeks.
that. 7 weeks from now?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, congratulations.
Thank you.
That is so exciting. More babies in the world. I love it. I got to see a baby the other day. It was fantastic. They make the world a better place.
We need hope right now.
Yes, and babies definitely bring it.
Yeah.
And so do you.
Well, thank you.
But so one of the first things I want to talk about is you mentioned that you had just gotten out of grad school. What's your degree in for grad school?
Perfectly good question. I didn't even think to talk about that. So my degree is in social work. I went to Boston University School of Social Work, where I've had the opportunity to teach actually since then, which is really exciting and also a full circle moment. But that's where I went. And at the time, I told my professors, I want to specialize in gender and sexuality. And they said, that's very niche. I don't know if you're going to have a full enough practice. And now here we are.
And people are probably, I'm assuming, bashing the doors down right now looking for help.
Yeah.
Because what's happened is, you remember, well, you probably don't. I am of an age where I remember, I'm left-handed, everybody. And people try to make left-handed people not be left-handed. And I have a friend who went to school and they actually forced him to write right-handed, forced him to do everything right-handed, and he said it made him a hot mess. Mm-hmm. Because that simple thing of not being able to use your dominant hand, become your dominant self, can cause that so much trouble and trauma. And in your work now, working with trans youth, there's got to be that same thing that's happening. Kids are being bombarded by this concept of, if you're your authentic self, nobody's going to love you, nobody's going to want you, politicians are going to come for you, and they start trying to immediately to hide their authentic self. Mm-hmm. Some of us, but it always leaks out.
Right.
So when they said this is going to be a niche thing that nobody is going to, you're not going to have clients, my thought was, they don't know Rebecca Miner. Immediately when you said.
And I'm so glad to know, I had forgotten that you were left-handed, because I like to use that little anecdote when people are like, what's going on? Why are all these kids trans these days? Like suddenly it's something that, as if it's in the water, when in fact we saw, when we stopped punishing kids for using their left hand, a massive uptick in left-handed children, not because suddenly everyone was having left-handed babies, but because we stopped punishing people for being who they are.
And not because right-handed people suddenly wanted to become left-handed
No.
either.
Right, just to go to the bathroom.
Right, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you used that example, because I remember when we were talking about our puberties that we went through, one of the things we talked about was we were both like, what the heck is going on to our bodies? And I didn't have anybody that I could talk with about it whatsoever. And now you are providing with these children and their parents, this is what your body's doing. This is what your brain is doing. Let's figure out the best path for you. So let's talk about the establishment of your practice for just a second. When you first sat down and said, I want to have a business where I help trans youth, is that kind of how you focused it immediately?
Yes.
Was that because of Camp Aeronautic? Harbor camps now?
Yes. I always make that error too. I'm like, oh, they've rebranded.
Yes.
Yes. It was in large part connected to that time that we were there together, and the work that I had done leading up to it, knowing that that was probably the group of people I wanted to support, but then it was definitely solidified that summer.
That camp was amazing. Like it got me here. I'm still using Rebecca. When I moved up here, I didn't know a soul. The people know this story. And I keep talking about how somebody just said, here, we have some furniture. Come to our house and go shopping for furniture. It was you. And I'm still using some of that furniture today. There's a butcher block stand.
Oh, good.
And it looks lovely. So
glad.
I mean, you never know when you provide kindness to the world and compassion and do something good, you never know until those people come back and say thank you. Right. And my guess is, are you in contact with a lot of your clients from 10 years ago still? Or is the goal to, your wings are, there you go, take off. We've got you sorted. Your life is in a good place. You don't need me anymore.
That is the goal. And I definitely still have a few clients who I'm either still seeing with less frequency, or they at least reach out and tell me kind of what they're up to, or like, I'm in college, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that, which is really sweet.
You got to secretly do the little happy dance every time. I mean, maybe not even secretly.
It's not a secret. Yeah.
And so you started your practice just yourself, or
just
did you?
Myself. Yeah. So after grad school, I took a few different jobs because you have to get your hours before you're allowed to work independently. But as soon as I had enough hours, I sat for the licensing exam, and then I started my own practice in Concord Center.
Okay.
And it was just me, and that went well until the pandemic happened. And so I closed my office and went virtual, and that was all, we flowed with that. We figured it out. But then I was just constantly getting requests, and I was like, I'm full, and I can't, I feel so bad turning these people away. And then I met the person who's now our clinical director, and I was like, oh, that's someone who I would trust to work with and like to see clients who I really care about.
Okay.
And so I started with just them, and then we hired someone else, and then we hired someone else, and now we have office here in Acton.
So one of the things that comes to mind is there has to be parents out there that are like, I want to help my child, but I cannot find a clinician anywhere because it is a niche. I mean, there's not a lot of trans people out there in the world, folks. They want you to believe that we're almighty and all powerful at times, and that we control all of the strings and we are the greatest thing ever, and you better watch out because we're all knowing. But in reality, there's really not a whole lot of us out there.
Right.
I mean, and so then you got on top of that, it's just hard to become a social worker, I'm assuming. That wasn't probably not just like, oh, I'm going to go in and take my little lunch with me, and then a couple of days later, boom, you're a licensed clinical social worker.
No.
There had to be so much effort, so much training, just like any true profession with a professional, like my teaching career. I didn't just get to go walk into a classroom and start teaching children. I
Right.
had to learn how to teach children. So for you to then be able to go out and find other people to bring on board, that almost sounds like a full-time job in itself, just to find people to be part of your practice.
Yeah. And that's why I'm so grateful to our clinical director, because they do a lot of that too.
Oh, well done, clinical director.
Yeah, they're amazing. So I'm so grateful for that, because yeah, it's hard to find people who, you know, are going to provide not only really fantastic care, but are also highly competent in this particular area.
I mean, because it's always growing. Like the concepts and I think back on my childhood, what would a therapist back then say to me? I would not have known, like
Right.
a therapist would not have known what to say. I would not have known, like I remember going to my doctor and telling them that I feel like I'm here, but I'm not here. And that was the closest I could get to it without just saying, I'm a girl, come on, get this right.
Right.
So that's one of the things I kept saying to my doctors over and over and over again. I feel like I'm here, but I'm not here. So when you finally did get your business started and in walks that first family, you had to be nervous as they were that first time too. Or was it like, oh, this is, I mean, excitement, nerves, because you know, you're helping someone affirm their authentic self on this journey.
Yeah, I think by that point, I felt pretty confident. And, you know, there's always that, like, I hope I'm the right person for this. I hope I can really make change here. But by that point, in my previous positions, I had become the person that if anyone queer or trans came through the door, they got sent to my office. So
Okay.
I had racked up some experience by the time I was on my own.
Okay.
But you know, everyone's different. So,
Yes.
you know, you see a young person, I had adult clients at that time too, that were tackling very different issues and dealing with coming out in the context of their marriage, you know, which is totally different than an 8-year-old who's trying to figure out who they are. So yeah, it was great.
And that's another thing. Can you kind of talk about just for a second, because I get this question and I want to give a good answer
Yeah.
to it every time, and I think I do give one. So people will say to me, how did you know? And I'm like, my old response to them was, well, how did you know you weren't transgender? Like, that's like, how did you not know?
Right.
And they were like, well, and then they just, it is so grasping at straws for them that I don't even know how to explain to somebody that the same way they knew who they were, I knew who I was. And in my world, I think it was around 3 or 4, maybe 5 years old. So can you kind of explain to the audience how this formation of identity takes place, if you don't mind?
I don't. So the research supports that most kids can identify their gender by age 3. So you're not wrong thinking that may have been around 3, 4, 5. In those few years after 3, we see kids kind of have the ability to play with gender more, and they're experiencing the ability to kind of try things on, right? This is when kids love to play dress up and role play and house, you know, and get to be different people and try different things. And then they experience more gender constancy, which between 5 and 7, which is when we often see kids be able to say, like, regardless of what I'm wearing or what my hair looks like or whether we're pretend play or not, I know my gender remains the same. But that's not always the case. And that's what's so hard about this subject matter is it's like some kids know and have the language and can speak to that at that age, and some kids won't until puberty starts to set in. Or looking back, they're able to see, yeah, there were these different kind of more obvious signs now, but I couldn't gather the strength or consider this possibility until I was out of the house and in college or in my 20s, 30s, 40s. So I never want people to feel like if they didn't identify this at 3, that there's something wrong with them or that they're not trans enough, because that's certainly not the case.
Right. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, it's important. But I love your answer to the how did you know? And I have an exercise, actually, that's in the book that I do whenever I speak to groups of people about this subject, which I call the Gender Identity Challenge. And the question is, how do you know your gender, or what is your gender, and how do you know you are that gender? But you can't use any anatomical terms or gendered language. So you can't say, I know I'm a woman because I have this body part, or I know I'm a man because I'm one of the guys or something.
Okay.
And it stumps people, right? Whole groups of people go silent and are like, well, and I watch people grapple with this of like, well, like a lot of cis women will say, because I had a baby or something. And then it's like, okay, well, let's break down that logic, because not all cis women can have babies. And there are trans folks who have babies.
Yep.
So that falls flat, right? That one's out the window. And when you keep kind of teasing it apart, you get to the reality that gender is a construct. And if we're going to accept the answer from cis people that they just know, then we have to be able to accept that answer from trans folks as well. But most cis people never sit with the questions that trans people constantly get and have to reaffirm and like explain, especially to be able to have access to what we know is life-saving gender affirming care.
And it is life-saving.
Yes.
It 100% is life-saving.
Yeah.
And life-thriving too.
Yes, yes. But you shouldn't have to say, oh, well, when I was 3, this is exactly what happened, to like legitimize your own lived experience.
That makes sense. And I do know adults, and I've heard them say, I affirmed my authentic, I like the term affirmed my authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that with one of my previous guests who was a nurse practitioner.
It's lovely.
And that was the term that he used. I affirmed. So I know a lot of older adults that affirmed their authentic selves in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And there's a myriad of reasons why they do that. Mm-hmm. Some of them were like, I didn't know until now. And some of them were like, well, it was the wrong time because I didn't want to rock the boat of my relationships. And it just, so there's all these reasons. And I think the thing that for a lot of those people is, like you said, I always felt like my authentic self was always going to leak out somehow or another, no matter how hard I tried to squish it down and think, no, get back in there, authentic Kelly. Yeah. She would come out.
Right.
And eventually I'm like, here I am, world.
Right.
And that moment when I said, here I am, world, was very hard because I did it on my own. I did have a support group, but we were afraid to be seen together. Yes. So we didn't really go out and socialize in the world at that point. Mm-hmm. So, and I kind of feel like that's where a lot of the people that are in higher up positions in our nation right now are trying to get us to go back to.
Yes.
They want us to feel scared to be our authentic self. Mm-hmm. They won't, and I'm going to just say it, they want parents to disown their children that are going to be affirming of their authentic self. They want the parents to say, no, if you do that, you're out of my life. And that's what people are pushing for. When I hear all of these anti-trans bills and things, it's like, wait, so what you're really saying is you want this person to suffer and you want the parents to make that person suffer.
Or they criminalize the parents.
Or they criminalize the parents who do want that.
Right.
Like, no, I'm not going to make my kids suffer.
Someone could be a felon for supporting their child is just wild.
It's completely wild. It's completely wild. And I also know there's this misconception that you are sitting there pumping kids full of hormones.
Oh, yes.
And you are sitting there and you've got some medical facility in the background that they don't know about. This.
Well, same with at school.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, my nurses. I told my nurses about that and they just laughed. And they were like, I can't even give you an aspirine right now.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. They're like, the best we can do is maybe some Pepto-Bismol.
Right.
Like,
and here's an ice pack.
No one's getting gender affirming surgery at school.
No. And no one is getting gender affirming surgery when they're 3 years old or 5 years old.
Never.
And you know what's happening is the parents are saying, yeah, if you want to go wear that article of clothing, go do it. Yeah, if you want to go play this way, go find out who you are. Go be who you are. And I'm here for you. And that's got to be scary too, because, and it might have been you that one time at camp said this. I think it might have been, because you say a lot of wise things, by the way.
Thank you.
Something about the kid has known, before the kid ever tells their parent, the kid has been working through all of this. So they're already ahead of the parent on this concept. So now the parent is kind of, instead of being the engineer of the train, is now in the caboose. And that's still an important role. There's a reason that a train has a caboose.
Absolutely.
But I do think it might have been you that talked about the parents are now in the caboose and are no longer the engineers.
I don't know.
I'm giving you credit for it.
Well, all right.
It was.
But, you know, that's a tough position for a lot of parents and caregivers to be in when they feel like they should know and should be kind of directing, right? They should be in that engineer position. And instead they feel like they're in the back getting kind of dragged along for this ride. And so that's a lot of the work that I do now is with parents, helping them know enough to feel like they don't necessarily have to be in charge, but they can be alongside their child for this journey.
Every time you come in, there is something that has happened in their world between the last time you saw them and this time now. There's either been growth, there's been setbacks, there's been new fears, there's been new celebrations. So how do you create that dynamic for someone to feel safe with you, to bring these things up?
I think one of the things that's been most effective in my work with parents and caregivers is acknowledging that their fears, doubts, concerns, maybe even a part of them not wanting this for their kid are welcome in my office.
Okay.
And that there are certain things that they're going to share with me that I don't want them sharing with their child, right? Especially around their grief narrative. Like that's something we can hold.
Can you explain what when you say grief narrative, can you kind of explain what's happening?
Absolutely. So a lot of parents and caregivers just like report this experience of significant grief, and they feel like they're losing their child when they find out that their kid is trans. The reality is so much of what's at the root of that grief is actually grieving the idea of who that kid would be. And I see this most with birthing parents who, right, like the experience I'm in right now, where you've got 9 whole months where you're just wondering about this new roommate you're going to have. And people start to create ideas and stories, especially when they find out the gender or they find out the sex. They think they find out the gender.
Right.
And they start to think, oh, okay, I'm having a girl. That means she's going to do this and she's going to love this kind of person and she's going to have these kinds of careers. And then you come to find out that's not actually who this person is. And that's where the grief is, because your kid is still there.
Right.
You haven't lost your kid. In fact, most of the time you're getting a fuller, more authentic and alive version of that person. And that's also why it's so painful if a young person finally gets the strength to come tell you who they are. I just want parents to listen and believe your kids. And if there's sadness, grief, fear, doubt, all of those other things, it's okay to feel those things. But we're going to process them with someone like me, separate from your kid, because they don't need to hear, you being so joyful about who you are is causing me pain.
That's hard, isn't it? So when they come to you then, so you'll have group sessions, you'll have individual sessions with the kid and individual sessions with the parent also. Okay.
And a lot of times now I just see the parents. and then I have someone else in my practice see the kid. So that way we can keep that separate too.
So there's even no chance of something accidentally slipping.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then I can work with the other clinician to kind of holistically support the family, which can be really helpful because sometimes kids and parents are on very different pages.
Yes.
You know, the parents are like, they're great and we're all getting along just fine. And the kid's like, that's way off base. And I was ready to start hormones, you know, last year and they're stalling and I'm upset. So
yeah,
you know,
I mean, and that makes sense. So, and this book is very timely. I mean, it would have been timely 1,000 years ago because trans people, we've been around a minute.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we might have been around since the time of humans, would be my guess, because I had a mentor. My mentor had a mentor. That person, so there's this entire history of us being around, and the way society perceives us is very different depending on culture, depending on the time we're in the human history and development. Like I've heard that in some cultures we're revered.
Oh, yeah.
Which I don't know that that's any better or worse, but it sure does beat having a bunch of anti-trans laws passed against me. But being revered, I'm a human.
Yeah.
Like that's what and yes, I do have this, I feel like I do have this unique perspective of I've seen how the world treats men and I see how the world treats women. And I do have that unique perspective, but I would have rather have affirmed my authentic self when I told my family when I was a little kid or when I intentionally got caught.
Yes.
I mean, that has to happen a lot too in your practice is the kids are like, well, I'm just going to accidentally get caught. I know my parents are going to be home in 5 minutes, so I'm going to get caught being my authentic self, and that's how they bridge it.
Right, because sometimes that's easier than words. What I'm seeing a lot, though, is text. Kids are coming out via text.
Okay.
Their parents are home. They're in the same house. But rather than going downstairs and like saying to their parents face to face, this is me, there's a lot of like, just so you know.
Hey.
Yep.
Hey, Mom, hey, Dad.
And then the parents
Or,
are
hey,
like,
parent,
what do
hey.
we do? Now it's dinner time. Like, do we act normal? What do we do?
Yeah. I mean, but that's got to be for, hey, I'm going to, like, kids drop bombshells on parents.
Yeah.
That's part of the role of a kid. It's like, hey, who you thought I was, I'm not that person. And all kinds of aspects of life and everything. Now, it's funny you were talking about texting because a story that happened with me just yesterday morning, as a matter of fact. I go to a UU church and we were doing meditation practices. And at the end of it, I was talking about how that meditation really helped me and it helped me to focus for today with this interview that I was doing. And I explained, I was just talking to this one person off to the side and I'm going, I cannot wait for this interview tomorrow. I'm actually interviewing the first person again that I ever interviewed for my show. And we're moving forward and they're now a best-selling author. You're a best-selling freaking author. Oh my God, Rebecca. You have to pinch yourself sometimes.
It's pretty wild.
I mean, this book should be on the New York Times bestseller list, shouldn't it?
I agree.
I mean, hasn't it sold enough to where...
It sure has.
And so there's a reason that it's not. And we won't go into those reasons, but we all have a pretty good idea of why a book about raising trans kids, which is a bestseller in numbers, is not being listed there.
Yes.
So I was telling this parent about, you wrote this best-selling book called Raising Trans Kids. And the next words out of her mouth was, I need that book. And I'm like, okay, something just happened here. And they said, my child just told me this summer that they're trans. And I'm like, you're going to get that book. So they're going to get a signed edition because I'm going to have you sign it.
Oh, wonderful.
And I'm going to pass it to her. And then I'm going to say, keep it as long as you need it. Keep it and then give it back to me if you don't need it any longer. Or if you know somebody else that needs it,
Give it
just
to another parent.
give it to another parent. So yeah, just randomly talking about this interview with you today and your book has helped a parent already, just knowing that they're about to get this book and that there's people out there that are writing books
Oh, I'm so
for
glad.
her
Yeah.
because she's nervous.
Of course. Well, and it's an acutely scary time, right? Like, this is already, like, the reason the subtitle of the book is What to Expect When You Weren't Expecting This is because that's a joke I often make to parents about what to expect when you're expecting, the pregnancy book. That this stuff wasn't in it.
I get it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? So I'm like, they left that chapter out. So y'all are doing your best, but you didn't, it's not because, you didn't have the education. And so to be able to give people those tools now is so exciting. Because it's not information they had. And so for a parent like her to know, like, you don't have to figure this out alone.
Exactly. And I told her, I'm like, look, I'll sit. I actually invited her to come sit in the booth and listen to this one because I'm like, I figured it would help her. But she is a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
She is a wonderful human being. And I'm looking forward to giving this book to them. And then, like, I know the kid, I know the parent, I know.
Well, and that's also huge that they know you and you're in their faith community.
Yep.
Right? To be able to say, look, there's an adult.
It's like, oh my God, you can make it to adulthood.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
a lot of parents don't think that's possible.
Right.
So when you were writing this book, you're also doing your job full time. You're writing a book, which I've tried to write a book. It's a full-time job.
It is, yeah, I don't think I quite understood what I was getting myself into.
But no, who does?
I don't know.
Who does? So from start to finish, when you first, the idea has probably always been in your head once you started your job. I need to write this book for people. And by the time I went to your book launch, which was fantastic. Yes. Oh my gosh, it was so informative, and the other co-host with you.
Oh, Stephen, isn't he wonderful?
He is wonderful.
Yeah.
And you said that his show is on Netflix?
Yes. Yep. He produced the documentary The Dads, which is wonderful. People should check it out. And they're about to have a feature-length version of it, which I'm thrilled about. Because the first time I watched it, I was like, that's it? It's like, it's 13 minutes. I was like, I wanted a whole,
more.
They got all these dads together for a whole weekend. I'm like, I want more of this. So luckily there is more. That was just like a little teaser.
When we were at the book launch and these parents stood up to thank you.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy guacamole. There's impact left and right taking place here in a positive way. And for them to drive into Boston, which is not an easy thing to do. Like
on a Wednesday, too.
Yeah, every time someone says, hey, we're going to Boston, I'm like, okay, let me gear up for this because the driving's about to be crazy. Parking's going to be a challenge.
Yep.
But they seemed excited to be there. And then you also created a little reunion for people that I haven't seen in forever also. So that was nice through it. But as you were writing the book, and I appreciate storytelling.
Yes.
And that's what you've done in here in this book. Can you kind of describe the layout of the book so that people at home, you're going to go buy the book, just so you know. You're just going to go buy it.
Kelly's decided you're going to buy the book.
You're going to buy the book, right. Because it's worth it. When I read it, I'm like, these stories are impactful. And so if you can kind of describe how the book is created or what the concept is inside of it.
So I wrote it in a way that you don't have to sit down and read it cover to cover, because I know people are busy. They're not necessarily going to do that. And a lot of the books that are out there feel very clinical and like a textbook, and that can feel intimidating and cause someone to just put it down or never even open it. So each chapter is designed specifically around a fear or a concern that keeps parents up at night.
Okay.
So they're all organized by questions. So you can go to the table of contents and be like, ooh, that feels really relevant to me right now, and go to that page. If you don't even want to read the whole chapter, at the end there's a key points section that gives bullet points of like what to really take away from it. And then there's also reflection questions. But each chapter, besides having information that often debunks parents' fears and corrects misinformation and disinformation. There are also a lot of case studies, and that's the stories that I think you probably find most interesting to read.
Yeah, I do, because, well, storytelling to me is that place where an unusual, or not unusual, that's not the right word, where a concept that we can't understand can be told in a way that, oh, I can get this story. Like if you were to say 83% of children, blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
But then this kid says, you know, a while back this happened to me. And then you're like, ooh, I can see that now.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's, for me, that was the trick for it. But other parents are going to find the data more interesting because that's what they need. Okay, my kid is going to be better off. Here's the statistics that show my child is going to be better off if I affirm their authentic self.
Right.
And one thing that is interesting, I'm assuming that, like, there's got to be parents out there that one parent is affirming and the other parent is like, there is no way on this planet I'm going to let that happen. And you've got to then navigate that part of it,
Right.
With this child and with this affirming or non-affirming parent, both. And can you kind of, does that happen often, or is it most of the time when people show up, like, they're like, we're all gung-ho to help our child?
It varies. I would say there's almost always one parent who's more gung-ho than the other.
Okay.
And the gender breakdown of that is not, like, it varies.
Okay.
I think sometimes people assume one way or the other, but the reality is I've seen every combination.
I would have probably been one of those that would have assumed also.
Yeah.
So thank you for debunking that little thought in my head
Yeah,
right there.
absolutely.
See? I can change my thoughts also.
There you go. Unlearning and learning in real time.
Yep.
But I think, parents who are choosing to work with me, right? Like they're opting in to sign up to spend time with me, are also often already in the place where they're wanting to learn more and be helpful. Some of them are still coming in with some doubts and fears, and certainly, I've definitely worked with parents who've pushed back quite a bit, and not always appreciated what I had to say. But on the whole, I get parents who are on the more gung-ho end of things because they're opting in.
Right, because they found, how did they, do they find you through Google? Do they find you through organizations?
I think both, or they find me on Instagram. But a lot of it, because I've been working on that blog and getting stuff out there, if you Google like transgender teen, some combination of like therapy and those words and my name, it comes up. So
but that's marketing.
Right.
Which is a full-time job.
I have too many jobs, Kelly.
You do, but it's a good thing you've got clinical directors
Exactly.
and other people to help you with it. But
Yeah.
you have to wear a lot of hats, I'm assuming, for this job.
Well, and I've expanded. So when I call it coaching, I'm allowed to see people wherever they live. Therapy has to be in the state within my licensure.
Okay.
But when I call it coaching, I'm able to work with families all over the country. And in fact, I've worked with some families in other countries, which is really interesting.
That is.
But to answer your question, I have worked with some parents where only one parent comes to the appointment and says, I'm here, I want to learn, but my spouse is unwilling. Or they're in the midst of a contentious divorce where this is one of the topics. Yeah. And so that's a tough one. And I do touch on that in the book. And yeah, that's a whole other can of worms.
That's one that, like, that one is a tough one. And I also think that, so you've got the community that wants to come to you. You've got the parents that want to come to you. You've got people like me that want to sit down and talk with you about this to help the people. But then there's that little kid in the middle school that I work at that gets no support from
Yes.
anybody, but can still see me. So what are some ways that we can help those kids that don't have that familiar support, that don't have that family that's there, that don't have any of that? What are some things that we can do as a society to help that kid?
I'm so glad you asked that, because we tend to fixate on the scary numbers, right? The bad numbers of like trans youth have 4 times the national average when it comes to suicidality. What we don't talk about enough is that it takes only one affirming adult to reduce that number by 50%.
That's crazy.
Right? So even if they don't have familial support, or they don't have, community support or support in their faith space or whatever it is, but they have you as one teacher at school, right? Or a gym teacher or a neighbor or a whomever, it doesn't matter your role, that's life-saving. And so I always tell people that, like, you actually have a lot more power here than you think you do to help these young people. And in general, I think advocating on behalf of the trans community is always something people could and should be using their privilege for. So it's not always safe for trans folks to be the ones at the table arguing for these things. And when there's a protest or when there's a call for, legislation, like showing up, literally putting your body on the line as an act of allyship matters.
That's true.
And so I think, we are in a time now where just like posting a little trans flag on Facebook or something isn't enough. And so figuring out what you can do, right, within your means, within what time you have, within your physical capacity, all of those things, but you can do something.
The ability to accept that I'm not going to always thrive, and sometimes I'm going to backslide, and sometimes I'm going to move forward, and sometimes I'm going to move sideways, and sometimes I'm stuck, is something that I've had to work on personally for quite a while, really, because it felt like I was stuck at times, and then it felt like, oh my gosh, I'm doing fantastic, and then one little time I get misgendered,
Right.
and I'm like, I tumble and spiral completely. And I'm like, why did I let that one comment that misgendered me, why did I let it impact me that way? And then I'm like, oh, that's trauma.
Ta-da! Yes.
So it's trauma-informed care. Can you explain what that kind of means to the people?
Trauma-informed basically means that we take into consideration that people are complex beings who have histories. And that if someone has a trauma history, which is quite likely for many humans, but certainly those in the trans community, that we take that into consideration and ensure that we're not passing judgments without understanding the full context of that person's environment, what they've been through, who they are, right? Like you were saying, getting misgendered that one time has a ripple effect of all of the times before that you were misgendered or that you weren't affirmed all the way back to your childhood.
Yep.
And so that all has an impact to inform that one moment. And so that's what trauma informed, in a nutshell.
Okay.
That's my short version.
But no, that's important. So what you're saying is you bring the whole package.
Yes.
So I kind of feel like you are kind of catching it early,
That's the hope.
and you're stopping that extended period of trauma so that when it does bring that ripple effect and the whole baggage comes forward, it's a small package versus 40 years, 50 years, however many years for
Exactly.
people.
Exactly.
So yeah,
Yeah.
you're doing the work of, you're doing important work,
Thank you.
and it's going to help people. And y'all are going to buy the book. It is called Raising Trans Kids. I saw Megan Rapinoe, was that who it was? Said, get this.
So, I mean, you and Megan, but I mean, between you and Megan, 2 famous athletes.
Yes. They do know I won a world championship.
Good.
Yeah, they
Good.
do.
It's important.
And I love the growth cycle here
Thank
that
you.
you chose for this.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's important to let people, and the whole pink and blue and clothing, and that's just,
It was all very purposeful.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you really know what you're doing. So you all, I'm going to sign off in a second, but I'm going to have you sign this for me, Rebecca.
And I have a question for you.
Absolutely.
While I sign this.
Okay. I'll now let you sign whatever. I was told that this is a high-tech, fancy, best signing pen ever.
Fantastic. So my question to you, even though I know I'm the one that came to be interviewed,
That's okay. I like answering questions.
is right now I'm getting a lot of questions from parents and young people who are afraid about the state of our world. And I'm wondering how you maintain hope and what advice you would give to them to kind of keep their chin up.
I think to maintain hope for me is to acknowledge that sometimes I'm nervous too. And sometimes I get a little bit overwhelmed with the outside world and people trying to take away this thing from me. But the thing they cannot take away from me is my authentic self. It's in here. Like, they can try, they can do everything they possibly can to do that. But also, I think the biggest thing for me is I've been around long enough to know that nothing stays the same. This too shall pass, but right now it's hard. And I'm not saying that to be flippant, because there's people that right now have lived this life where there has been no pressure, there has been no oppression until this current administration came in and these current politicians have put this oppression and put this burden upon us. But I was raised in that burden and that impression, and yes, it did cause trauma. But for me, the hope is that I know I'm a good person. I know there's good people in the world that are out there fighting for me. I know that tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to go do something good in the world. I'm not going to wallow in my own fears. I'm going to go fight against them, and I'm going to go laugh. I'm going to go look at the birds. I'm going to go look at the trees. I'm going to go play my favorite whatever. I'm somehow or another going to continue moving forward, and hope will always be there with me because I know that I'm on the right path. And that took work on my part to get on that path. 100%. It took a lot of work for me to know that I am now on the correct path in my life, because I wasn't, but I knew I wasn't when I was on that path too. So for the parents, I would think, love your kid. Love your kid. Make sure your kid's well fed. Try to make your kids laugh every once in a while. Be a goofy parent every once in a while. Understand that they're going through something, that they're working through it right now too. How do I affirm my authentic self? Because there's not a lot of resources. I mean, there's you and there's other resources, but this journey, it's beautiful. Like, anytime anybody strives to be authentic, it's going to be challenging, but it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be absolutely beautiful. And that's kind of where I'm at. And I cannot wait to meet this young one.
Thank you.
I cannot wait to meet this young one.
They're excited to meet you too.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
Hey.
just got a kick.
So, but yeah, thank you so much, Rebecca. And is there any last thing you would like to say to people before we go? I think we've covered a lot, but
I think we did. Yeah. I want to say how incredible it is to see you doing what you're doing 10 years later, knowing all that you've lived through too, which I know you've talked a lot about on the show, but for folks who haven't been watching the whole time, they may not know the depth of your experience and all that you had to claw your way through to get here and be able to deliver such a message of hope. So I'm so grateful that you exist in the world so that young people and families and everyone gets to know you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And We're doing good.
We are.
We're doing good.
Yeah.
And you all go out there and do good too, okay? I mean, be kind, be compassionate, and just go show a little bit of empathy to the world and love your kids. Thanks, y'all. Bye.